Welcome in to Greenville Grit, Greenville residents in touch on 103.7 WTIB. This is the local show that keeps you connected and in touch with the issues that affect what's happening in your community. Greenville Grit is sponsored by Ribeyes, Kid Construction, and Greenville Toyota. Now, here are your hosts for Greenville Grit, Terry Williams and Michael Overton.
Good evening and welcome to Greenville Grit. I'm Terry Williams.
And I'm Michael Overton. Terry, good to see you this beautiful
And
spring afternoon. Have
Yes,
a little break between the rain showers. Some more coming later, I think.
Later. Mess up all the baseball schedules.
Yeah, I know. But how about ECU on I think a 6-game winning streak right
awesome.
now? That is awesome to see. Anyway, we're going to get into the show. We have a great special guest tonight, Pitt County Commissioner Glenn Webb of District 6. Thank you, Glenn, for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
I know this is the Greenville Grit. We talk about Greenville areas, but I'd say a lot of what you guys do has quite an effect on the city of Greenville. So we'll talk about some of the major issues. And
Greenville's in our county. So
a little bit.
right.
Yeah. But before we do that, always we thank our sponsors that allow this show to go on. Greenville Toyota, thank you so much for your support, continuous support. If you're looking for a new Toyota or Scion vehicle or a new used car, go see Craig Gillis and the Greenville Toyota team. You can call them at 321-3000, visit them on the web at greenvilletoyota.com, or go across and visit them in person.
That's right.
Right across from Fresh Market on Memorial Drive. Got to thank Ribeyes Steakhouse.
Yum.
Well, I wasn't expecting that, but there you go.
Like that salad bar.
Well,
I
salad
love the
it
steaks
is
too.
fantastic. Went there last week and had a good meal. But
We did
if you're
too.
looking for a great steak, pork chop, chickens, baked potato,
Yeah.
a great salad bar, go visit them. They've been a sponsor of us for several months now. You can see them on
appreciate
the
it.
corner of Fire Tower at Arlington Boulevard, as well as the location in Williamston. The Overton Group Real Estate Professional serving all of Eastern North Carolina.
Thank you, Michael.
You're very welcome, Terry. We do commercial real estate leasing, sales, business brokerage, property management, and have residential brokers. So we are a full-service real estate firm. So we are now going to take our 2-minute commercial break. We'll get back, and we'll get into conversations with Glenn Webb. So be back in 2. Welcome back to the Greenville Grit. Again, I am Michael Overton. I have my co-host to the right of me, Terry Williams. Thank you again, Terry, for getting back on today. And we got to thank Glenn Webb for coming on, a county commissioner with Pitt County, District 6. Thank you for coming on, Glenn.
No, glad to be here.
We've got a few things we want to talk about. It's going to kind of be a floating show, so we'll develop as we go. We're learning a little bit about you. You're a Greenville police officer in the homicide division.
That's right.
So I want to commend you guys on the job you guys have done for the last couple of years on getting our crime rate down. I think people are excited. We've always agreed that we have probably a little bit of a perception issue as a city, and I hope that's starting to change with some of the roads you've made.
It's hard to beat perception. You know, whenever the crime is always on the front page, it always lends to the perception that something's always going on. And when a story goes on for 1 or 2 weeks in a row, you know, it makes it feel like there's more than there's going on, but it's just one thing. And so, but no, I work with a great group of professionals. Pitt County, countywide, has great law enforcement officers. And we're very fortunate for the groups that we have working with us, not just in Greenville, but countywide.
Now, prior, you made a presentation to us with the realtors about safety. So you were doing something like that, too, prior to what you're doing now, or is that all in conjunction with it?
That was prior to it. I was in Special Victims Unit for 7 years, and I haven't forgotten that stuff, so
Exactly.
I still do some of those presentations, mainly circulating around the internet crimes. I was a part of the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, and we investigated people who trafficked in child pornography.
That's right.
But we also did in the Special Victims Unit pretty much everything else, any depressing crime you can think of, from sexual assaults, child abuse, child sexual assault, all of it comes through there. And so there's a very special group of people that work in that field.
Takes a special group.
Yes, it does.
And a lot of therapists.
Now, right now, is there still a missing girl, young 9-year-old in Martin County? Did you hear anything about that? I heard that on the news last night. There's a missing 9-year-old.
I heard the story on the news last night.
Has she been found? Do we know?
I don't know. I haven't seen any updates on that today.
Yeah. Well, you carry a lot of hats, not just with your job as the police department, but even on the commission. So you're chair of the Pitt County Board of Commissioners. Is that the official title?
That's right, chairman.
Okay.
And I guess president-elect of the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners.
That's also correct,
right.
yes.
Awesome. Has Pitt County ever had a chairman of that organization?
It's been, I want to say 40 years ago. It was in the 70s. early
That's
70s
great.
when they had, and I believe it was Bob Martin, if I'm not mistaken.
And is that association pretty much, I'm assuming, all 100 counties have representatives that go there?
Right, all 100 counties are members of it, and we're also members of the
Actively?
National Association. Most of them do. Usually at our conferences when we have our business sessions, usually between 88 and 95 counties show up. Lately, in the past couple years, it's been more in the high 80s because we have a lot of rural counties, 81 rural counties in North Carolina, and so it's harder for them to travel. They usually come to the conferences for the business sessions that are closer to their home county.
Right.
So we're hoping to have a lot from the east because I'll be sworn in as president right here in Greenville in August.
Oh, that's great.
And so when they gave me the option of where to have it, I kind of felt like the economy of the citizens that elected me deserved to benefit from it. And those conferences usually bring about $500,000 to $750,000 economic impact to the area.
So the people who go to that meeting on the state level, is it the chair of each? Or is
No,
it
any
appointed or
commissioners
any
can come.
commissioner?
All, we have over 500 commissioners in the state, and every commissioner, once they're elected, is a member through their county.
Okay.
So that anyone can come attend. And but each county can have one voting delegate. So when we have our business session, recently this year, this is a legislative goals year, so we met in Moore County, which Pinehurst. You know,
Okay.
being a county commissioner, we refer to everything by county. Most people refer to it by city. So near Pinehurst.
Right.
And we passed our legislative goals this year. And those are the things that our advocacy team works through in the legislature. And as part of the executive committee, I travel to Raleigh fairly routinely to meet with the House and Senate leadership and occasionally with the governor's office. But mainly I work through our local delegation, who has really been good for counties. Brian Brown and Susan Martin, they seem to have our back at every turn, and we really
great.
appreciate their influence in Raleigh.
Well, one thing you mentioned prior to us going on the air, I guess one of the projects you've got upcoming here is developing the 10-year plan.
Yes, well, the association, we just met in Macon County.
Oh, so it wasn't the county 10-year plan, but the
No,
association?
it was the association's strategic plan, and that'll be implemented under my year.
Okay. And how will that benefit Pitt County?
Well, it'll benefit Pitt County because it sets out the goals of the association and how we're going to operate in Raleigh. County government's actually a wing of state government. We're not independently local, and we're a Dillon's Law state. So every action we take, there's a law in Raleigh that says we can take that action. So we have to work very closely with our state partners. And when we develop these strategic plans, it's really what we want counties and the association to look like over the next 10 years. We're ending the first one, and we've just started this process. For the first time in over 100 years, we've developed a mission statement, and we've got some other goals to go along with that we haven't quite finalized yet. There'll be another meeting of the board of directors in June, and we'll get it finalized, and we'll start implementing it come August.
Well, I think one of the things that is fairly evident is some of the struggles of Eastern North Carolina economically and lagging behind other parts, especially the upside-down crescent, which is the I-85-40 corridor. How do we, as a county, and not just ours, but even with the surrounding counties in the east, get to a point where we are attracting the business and the development and the job to bring the jobs to this area?
Well, I think of like the movie, if you build it, they will come. It centers around infrastructure. If they're going to build something here, they know we have the workforce, but can they ship their product? And right now the answer is not yes. That's why the Southwest Bypass is so important. That's really going to benefit in my district down at the industrial parks near Ayden and Winterville. It's going to foster some growth because you can get right on the Southwest Bypass, be past the hospital and on to I-95 in no time. That's really going to help us out a lot. We have to foster that infrastructure all throughout the east. And something I found, and another way this association benefits Pitt County, is because when I go to Raleigh, we're not speaking as one county. We're speaking as 100 counties. We don't really, as an association, delve into the things that separate the electorate or anything else. We focus on what will benefit counties as a whole. So we have this motto that we're 100 counties in one state. So when we talk to a legislator or senator, they know we're speaking for 100 counties. And that gives you a lot more bargaining power than it does when you're just coming from one district in one county. So when we're looking at infrastructure, the governor's been really good talking about transportation. I know he wants to pass some bonds, and I'm kind of hoping he'll push it to the general election year to save the county money because we have to pay for those elections, those bond referendums. Even though this is a city year, we have to open up all those county districts as well if we have a bond. And also, just on that tangent just for a second, if we have a second primary next year, that's more cost to the county, so we'd like to consolidate everything. But anyhow, the infrastructure plan I think that the governor has is good. He's done a lot for rural counties. And I think that in my travels here with the association, I've realized that the counties east of 95 and west of 77 have a lot in common. Although our landscape is a lot different, our struggles are very similar. When you look at our mental health issues, when you look at our health care issues in general, when you look at crime issues, when you look at just top to bottom the issues of the economy and economic development, east of 95 and west of 77 have a lot of commonalities. And when you combine those two things, those two areas, that comes up to about 62, 63 counties. So that's a majority, and we can really start to flex that if we band together. Not that we're enemies of the Piedmont, because what's good for them is good for North Carolina.
True.
But we want a whole
to have a
state.
strong enough voice.
That's right.
In your specific regions that you are being heard. And I've heard rumors of that in the past. How is that working together, the East and the West? Are they banding together and trying to work more together as an association?
It's gotten a lot better over the last 7 years.
Because they realize the struggles are similar?
Right. We can't regionalize anymore. We have to focus on our commonalities and our strengths and grow together as one state and not just pieces of states. And, they feel very forgotten over there. I'll give you an example in Macon County of how long of a state this is. In Macon County, you're closer to the state capitals of Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama than you are of North Carolina. And so they kind of feel left out there. And that's part of the reason we had our current president's from Macon County, and that's part of the reason he wanted to have us out there. So once you pass Asheville, it's a really a blind spot for the state. Again, a lot of times once you pass Greenville, it's a blind spot for the state. So we're trying to raise awareness in Raleigh that there is a whole state. The, Tennessee doesn't start after Asheville, and the Atlantic Ocean doesn't hit I-95 at high tide. And that's what we try to impress upon them.
Well, the environmentalists are saying that's going to happen.
Right. They're saying, and in Raleigh, I want to say, if my numbers are correct, 51 or 52% of the representation in the legislature is from the Piedmont. And so that leaves 2/3 of the state to split up.
49%.
Right.
That can be a bit of a problem.
It is.
Yeah, so tell the public that's listening what the commissioners do versus, we do a lot on the show about city council, but and so they hear a lot about what's going on in the city. But other than like school board, what other types of functions are you all in charge of? Planning
and building permits with landfill, the sheriff's office, the jail, the courthouse. We don't pave roads. That's the one main difference between city and county government is roads are not our responsibility. So really when we call it a county road, or we say you live out in the county, you live off a state road.
Right.
And that brings up a lot of issues with us in that we don't want to have to fund those because it would break us. You're talking about a serious tax increase. So we work closely with the DOT to make sure they get out there when they can and cut the grass because we get tall out there in the county at times, or repaving. And we've ran into a lot of issues with pavement of streets in subdivisions. That has been a big problem.
Well, that's actually a pretty good one to talk about. I know there are some laws passed that any new developments that go into place must either be bonded to make sure the roads are going to be covered for a certain period of time. How do we handle this and am I correct on that?
You're right, and we've got some ordinances to that effect, I believe.
So what do we do about the older neighborhoods?
What we've done is developed a pool of money where these neighborhoods can apply. They have to repay it because it's taxpayers' money and we don't pave roads, but this is allowing them to take out a loan to pave their streets. And they basically just get assessed an extra tax. They do a little bond for themselves. And if the way that this board has been doing it, we can, I think, charge up to a 5% interest rate, but we've been foregoing the interest rate if they're going to pay it back within 10 years because that keeps the fund replenished. It incentivizes them to pay it back early so that we can keep it going and help get these neighborhoods up. It's just one way that as counties we're thinking out of the box and trying to get things done because the state pool of money is shrinking. And I know you've heard the mayor talk about the challenges the city faces, and we face very similar issues in the county. Is that we don't have the power to fix it through bonds, and then we have to rely on the state, and that's where the governor's coming in with his bonds. So
what do you do? Well, I guess describe the state pool of money as shrinking, and how do we respond to that?
Well, that is something our legislators have to do. They have to decide whether they're going to keep the gas tax capped. They're going to have to decide how the funding formulas work, and they're going to have to decide how they split up that $21 billion of money that sits in Raleigh for the annual budget. And there's ways to do it, but everyone's resistant to cuts. It doesn't matter for some reason which party they're in. I'm proud of my board. In 2012, when we were at the height of our budget issues, we cut $2.5 million in spending, and everyone survived. And we haven't raised taxes since I've been in. We've done revenue neutral budgets. We're expecting our property values to go up, and most of us, and I believe a majority of us, have committed to a revenue neutral budget. So you'll still pay the same amount, but the tax rate will come down. You won't get hit with the revenue increase.
Are you
there.
speaking of the revaluation that's coming up in 2016? You think that the property values are going to be up?
I don't think it's going to be dramatic, but I think they're going to go up some.
I don't know about that.
Well, I'm being positive.
Okay, we'll let you be positive. I don't think it won't be across the board. It might be some areas.
That's correct.
But some areas are going to be just the opposite. City of Greenville, same way.
Probably will pop up.
I think the county,
Simpson.
Right.
But I think some of the other areas of the county.
And that's just like in the last reval, property values went down as the net effect, but there were areas where it went up. So it's going to be a give and take. I think our net effect will be up. And the majority of our population lives in Greenville. So as Greenville goes, so will the reval go. But
well, they're not interdependent of each other. I mean, Greenville is a part of Pitt County and needs Pitt County, but Pitt County's got to have Greenville also. But going outside of Greenville, how does the county, when you look at towns like Bethel that have been literally decimated, I mean, you drive through, because we go there every weekend for horse lessons for my girls, but you know, it's sad to go through and see the number of vacant houses that are, holes busted in, roofs caving in. This is our county. I mean, at one point, I always heard that was one of the wealthiest towns in the state per capita, and now it's probably got to be one of the poorest. I mean, what do we do to support towns like Bethel, towns like Falkland, some of our smaller communities, towns like Grimesland, to make sure that they receive?
Well, some towns will always be small towns. That doesn't mean they have to die. And just like our association is 100 counties in one state, most of us on the board, I think all of us on the board, believe that you're elected out of a district, but you represent the entire county. There's a lot of issues north of the river. If you live north of the river and outside the city of Greenville, you live in a food desert. The only grocery store north of the river is in Greenville. So we're trying to foster an environment that will allow someone to put a grocery store in Bethel. I don't know what that looks like yet. There's only a certain amount of things that we can do. Another thing that we need to do is look for the state to help us invest in the industrial park that is near Bethel. We split it with Martin County. It's not electrified yet, and it's going to cost a lot of money to do that.
Many years it's been around, it's still not been electrified.
That's right. We need to get all the utilities running out to it, because that's what will save any area, is jobs. People want to live near where they work. My parents live where they live because where my dad and my mom work. I live where I live because of the same thing, ease to get to the police department. So we have to make it an attractive place. And right now, north of the river is not. Again, we have a food desert up there. We have infrastructure issues. We need to bring some jobs up that way. Really need to change the perception of it, and it means focusing on it. And again, I represent the extreme southern portion, but we're doing okay down there. And there's still things that we need to do around Ayden and Grifton. And we're doing those things.
And I think what's going to be wonderful for both Ayden and Grifton is the Southwest Bypass.
Absolutely.
This is really going to help them.
I think something else that'll help out the north of the river areas when 64 gets converted into that 795, not 790, 495. I think that'll help. Interstate brings life.
So that is still being considered and looks positive.
Right. Well, I saw signs for it when I was coming back from Macon County. When I hit the split off to come to 264, I saw the entering the 495 corridor. And basically 264, the reason 264 is an interstate is because of 4 feet on each side, 2 feet of shoulder on each side of the 4-lane. And that's what's keeping us back. And
well, I know Alan Thomas is working very hard to try to make that happen.
When I took office in 2010, I started talking about it, and we looked at it, and we were not even on the Department of Commerce's map. So I worked with Wanda Uhas and our economic development team to get the state to put us on commerce, because we were on the DOT map. The road was, but Greenville was on the map but there was nothing connecting it on commerce. Well, industry doesn't look at DOT; they look at commerce to see where the centers are. So we worked with them and through then Governor Perdue's office to get that road to show a 4-lane road on the map running to Greenville. So that was a good accomplishment there. And the mayor, when he took office, he's been very aggressive in that as well, and it's been very productive. And we still got a long way to go, and there's still a lot of other places that are going to compete with us for those dollars.
Right.
Well, we need to take our second commercial break, Terry. Got about 5 minutes coming back. We're going to take our next 2 minutes, and we'll be back to finish our conversation with Glenn Webb.
Welcome back to Greenville Grit. We're here this afternoon with Glenn Webb, who is the chairman of the Pitt County Board of Commissioners.
That's right.
And we're really glad to have you. We want to discuss a little bit, we talked about it briefly in the break, more about economic development. I know that we're all familiar with Wanda Uhas, who is out there, fighting for us. And
tell public who she is.
What is her official, is it Pitt County Development Commission?
Right, and she's the director.
Okay, and she is the director, and so she's out there fighting along with, a conglomeration of all of you all in all of our forms of government that are in economic development. But now tell the public I'd asked you this question earlier, she's not completely run by the Pitt County Board of Commissioners. They're sort of separate, sort of not, right?
That's correct. She works for her board, which is appointed by us.
Okay.
But the oversight's a little different. She comes to us and tells us what she needs, and we mull it over and decide yes or no. And but her advice, I've found in my 5 years on the board, has been gold every time.
Right.
Hopefully, I'm not setting her up for anything. She'd probably say no, don't say that. But she's been really good. And she has been, always seems to be in her team, and she'll give all the credit to her team. She's got a great team over there.
Right.
And they're always in the right place at the right time. And they've really done a great job. When you look at the Patheon expansion that
their
went on.
focus is more on the larger industrial type.
They are. Yeah, they're not a small business like the chamber.
Exactly.
They are industrial. And they are, and you're talking about, I want to say, in my term as commissioner, well, not that I can take credit for it, although I voted for it, but I mean, it's really her work and her team's work. In my 4 years, in a recession for half of it, we had $1 billion invested in Pitt County for industrial development.
Wow.
And that's big. We
need to continue because, I mean, as a commercial realtor, one of our weakest areas in this area is industrial.
Right.
We don't have much inventory is one challenge. So when we do have people calling, asking about it, we don't have anything to show them.
Right.
But the flip side is we don't have the users. So you don't have the inventory. It's that,
So
back
we
and
have.
forth.
So Wanda would be, of course, negotiating and talking with the current industries that we have for expansion, which we're seeing some of that in our current. And then she'd be out there still on a county level trying to have new industry come. And
we have an existing industries coordinator and new industries. And so they're trying to pull them in, but they're taking care of who's here. Because you notice we don't have, there was a lot of it that happened in the late 90s, people left, but we don't have people leaving Pitt County right now. They're in a good position, and we don't give them any cash to be here. There's nothing like that going on. We get a return on investment usually within 7 years is the standards we make. And any incentives, because I've had a lot of people email me, I've heard you gave an incentive here. And those are true, we do. And if you don't give an incentive, they'll be in Greenville, South Carolina.
That's right.
Exactly.
And but the incentives we give are not
happened
cash
recently.
incentives, and we compete with Texas and South Carolina that say, hey, we'll give you money.
Right.
We do some offsets for them, but again, we get that money back within 7 years. And the thing with our incentives is we set benchmarks. If they say we're going to create 100 jobs and we're going to invest $1 million, if they come up a penny short or a job short, they don't get the incentives. So they have to keep their commitments. So we put them, we have a lot going good for us here. We have a great medical center, we have a great university, and we have a great community in general. And we have a great workforce. And Pitt Community College is a huge asset with job training. And they're absolutely crucial that's what separates us in so many competitions is Pitt Community College's job training. So they come here and they stay here, and I'm proud of that. But like you said, Michael, we got to keep it going. We can't just stop. We can't rest on our laurels. And luckily Wanda doesn't. She's done with one project. She loves them, and she is eyeing the next thing to bring another investment to Pitt County.
Well, I think it's critical that all those separate economic development areas in the city and county have to work together.
Have to.
For the same goal. So that's really, really important.
And when you boil economic development all the way down, it comes down to what we're doing in our educational systems. Because if you don't have a workforce that's trainable, if you don't have a workforce that can read and write and do basic skills,
that's right.
Then you are not going to have industrial growth. So we need to make sure, as part of that piece, that we're focusing on our K through 12 education.
You got to stand out from the crowd, because
That's
if
right.
you don't, you're going to get run over.
Absolutely.
You got to make sure people see you. But Glenn, thank you. We're coming to our last 20 seconds. Thank you for joining in the Greenville Grit. And thank you to our sponsors, Greenville Toyota, the Overton Group, and Ribeye Steakhouse. Catch us on Friday night at 6:30, Saturday morning 9:30 on Cable 7. Until next time, we will see you next week.